This is my love letter to the Louisiana street shawl because a picture is worth 1,000 words, but a video Hi everyone, my name is Natalie, also known as Knitty Natty, and this video is all about my newest design, the Louisiana Street. And Louisiana Street is a triangular shawl knit out of fingering weight, and I cannot wait to tell you all about it. So in this video, I'm gonna go on and on about my inspiration, the design process, and some of the things that I love about the shawl and how you can wear it. So let's dive right in. So this is a knitted design. I'm gonna take it off so I can show it to you a little better. So this is a knitted design. It is an asymmetrical triangle. Technically it's a right triangle shawl, which I didn't learn the technical term until after I had finished making it, but it is made by doing an increase on one side of the shawl, making it a right triangle. I used long dog yarn for this shawl, and I used 3 colors, and I have them all right here. I used First Blush, and I don't know if you can see that very well, but this is First Blush. It is a gorgeous blush pink with speckles of like neon yellow, really dark black and pink, and it's really fun. I also used another long dog yarn, and that colorway is Wild Child, and that one is really fun too. It's this one here. It's more of a neutral base, and it's got greens and blues and burnt orange in it. And then lastly, I used a tiny bit, I just used a mini of this green color, and that was another long dog yarn mini skein, and that one is called Evergreen. So you just need 2 skeins of fingering weight to make this, and as an option you can put in a 3rd color if you want. You can get the pattern in my Ravelry shop, and it is linked down below. If you are not a Ravelry user and you do like this pattern, feel free to email me. My email is nittynatty@gmail.com. Right now, Ravelry is the only option to buy my patterns. I love Ravelry, but I understand that many people have conflicting emotions about it, and I don't want that to stop you from being able to get my patterns. So for the time being, if you want to just email me, we can work something out for that. So now I'm going to start in on the next section. So this is the inspiration section, and I'm just going to talk about how I got started designing Louisiana Street. So the very first thing actually was I was sitting in one of the local yarn shops in North Texas, Knitty Natty. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to be, and this was probably in, I don't know if it was summer or before summer even started. It was quite a few months ago. And I was listening to the owner, Ginger, talk about the North Texas Yarn Crawl coming up in September. And I thought, you know, I would like to have the opportunity to design something for Knitty Natty during the yarn crawl. I've been on several yarn crawls before, but I haven't been on the North Texas Yarn Crawl yet. But I have been on them before, and typically a lot of the shops will offer up a pattern, and the patterns are, I don't know how to say this, they're not always something that you want. Typically they're a free pattern, which is really kind, but it's not always like, I don't know, it's just kind of like interesting things, like a lot of housewares, which is good, but just never things that really like drew me in and were my style. So I wanted to design something that was very simple but very classic, something that people can easily find yarn to make it, and just something that I thought that if I were a knitter walking into a shop, I would be interested in knitting this pattern. So that was the initial part. I talked to Ginger, and we decided that a shawl would be something that people would really like. I didn't even have an idea of what item to make yet. And she said people are really interested in shawls. With it being September, we're like, you know, gonna start getting ready for fall. So we were kind of planning this out way in advance. So I got to work. I don't think it was right away, but it was a little bit later. And I got to work on it actually when I was about to go on a summer vacation. And as you know, during vacations, you don't want to have anything complicated to work on. And bringing a design was probably not the right choice. I try not to do that as a rule because you have to think and edit and tweak while you're designing, even if you have the concept fully fleshed out, and I didn't yet. All I knew was I drew up a little terrible diagram to show Ginger, and I was like, I'm thinking texture, I'm thinking colors, and I'm thinking like a little bit of stripe in different sections. And she was like, okay. I'm not good at conveying what I'm thinking in my head on paper, plus it always changes. So I knew I wanted to do a triangular shawl. That's a shape that I'm not done exploring yet. And I knew I was really into texture, and I knew that I wanted something simple. So those were kind of my three things, were like triangle, simple, texture. So we actually started with a different shawl. Well, a different set of yarn, because I did not have the yarn yet to make my final sample. So this is my prototype, and typically I do not make a full-sized mock-up of my patterns before I do the final one. If I did, it would take me forever to design everything. Usually I do something small or a swatch and then use the yarn that I'm going to use for the final thing. But this was a different experience. It was kind of cool actually to go from start to finish. And after completely finishing it, I was able to make some pretty big changes, not major changes to how it looks, but I saw how much yarn I had left over and actually shortened some things for this main color here, just to make sure that you as a knitter can be confident you'll have enough yarn when you make it. So this is my original one. The yarns I used, I didn't pull the bands over here, and I'm not sure I can remember. But I know this one is a pretty common yarn. It's not a hand dyed. And this one is Sunrise Fiber Company, who's no longer dyeing. So these were good to use just to practice with. And like I said, this is not exactly how the final one is. But I started this on a plane on the way to Disney World, and I had made a little tiny shawl to practice my decreases with my texture pattern. And so I had all my notes on the plane, like on the little tray. I think we were probably flying Spirit too, so it's like a tiny little tray, and I'm trying to do everything. And I cast on and get started, and I don't know, I think I was even doing math on the plane. So this was really made like during a traveling time. And it was fun. I just worked on it on the trip, and then when I got back, and then when I went in to get the final yarn, I had a full shawl all ready to show Ginger. And then when I wanted to pick out colors for the final design, I wanted to go with something in very different from these two stark contrasting colors, and that's how I came up with this, which is very, very, very different than the first one. You've got two colors that are so similar, you might not even be able to see that they're sort of striped here to fade into this next color. It was really hard for me to choose colors. I knew I really liked this one, and I knew I wanted to pick colors that blended, but I was having trouble with these like little details. So a friend and of course, McKinney Knittery's owner helped out, and we came up with a third contrasting color, which several of my testers decided to use, and it looks really, really cute. So, like I said, I wanted this to be something easy, and the way that I made that easy is you actually start with the widest end of the shawl. So the most stitches you're ever gonna have is right at that cast on and first couple of rows. Then from there, you start decreasing immediately, and you decrease, decrease, decrease all the way down to that tiny end. This was like a concept that I haven't seen before, and I'm sure is out there. But I've never experienced it in any shawl patterns that I've made, and I wanted to do something different since it was such a simple pattern. And so approaching shawls in a different way was how I accomplished that. So instead of starting, like most shawls I've knit start at the small end if they're an asymmetrical triangle, and then you increase until you get to the widest end here. And I just, in patterns like that, I feel like I hit a wall some point about like right here, because you're making so much progress and then those rows get longer and you're just like, oh man. So with this one, you still experience that. Well, I did a little bit, but it's in the beginning. So while you still have all of your lovely motivation, you get through most of this main color. This does use up, this first section, it's so hard to show shawls that are long. This first section uses up most of your main color. You really are going to use a lot of it, and then you mix it in with your second color, and then this doesn't use up very much at all. I would say a little over half of your skein. I need to do my final weights, and of course that will be in the pattern. But it's good to get that long slog out of the way, and then after this garter section here, it just flies. I just did that in a couple of days, which was really fun and super motivating because then you are done with your shawl. So I think that's all of really the idea behind it and the concept. So let's move on to the next section. I'm coming back to you a couple hours later, inserting this in because I can't even believe I almost forgot to tell you the inspiration behind the name Louisiana Street. So this shawl was knit in collaboration with Knitty Natty, and Knitty Natty is located in McKinney, Texas on West Louisiana Street. McKinney has the most adorable downtown area. The first Saturday of every month, I believe, they have like I think it's called First Saturday. No, Second Saturday. Second Saturday. Second guessing myself. But they have an opportunity for all the small business owners to be open late one Saturday a month. And Knitty Natty is right there on like the main way, and they do their late nights too. They are the most amazing shop here in Texas, one of many. And I just love going there. I will drive there. I will drive an hour. Takes an hour from door to door to get there and meet friends on the weekends because it's just so worth it. And I will go there and get my yarn. It's an amazing place. So I'm so happy and so honored to be collaborating with them. And through them with using long dog yarn. So the name of the shawl had to be inspired from Knitty Natty. So we tossed some ideas around, and Louisiana Street was a favorite, and I was shocked it was not taken on Ravelry because, as you know, when you're naming patterns, but I guess anything, you want to be unique and you don't want to take somebody else's name even unintentionally. So Louisiana Street it was. So I already covered a little bit of the journey of the shawl, but let's talk some more about the struggles and ideas that I had. So I knew I wanted to come up with a texture pattern that would look beautiful in both solid and more speckled yarns. So I tested, swatched many different stitch patterns. Some were super ugly. You know what? I'm supposed to have my swatches here, so I need to go get those. Pause for just a second. What is so silly is I brought all of this stuff down yesterday to prepare for recording this video today. And since I prepared ahead of time, I forgot that I was prepared. So now I have everything that I need. So I believe my first swatch was this one. So I started with just some garter because I wanted to see what the yarn looked like. And now this is not the final yarn, but it is the yarn in my prototype. I probably wouldn't pick a variegated yarn again for this pattern. I think a solid and a speckle do it much more justice, but I don't think that the variegated looks bad either. So I started with this, and then I kind of explored this texture pattern and doing some garter bumps on it, and I did not like it at all. I really didn't like it, but you can see I started to test my decreases there and just to kind of work out for those garter sections. And then I decided I would switch over to the solid yarn, and you can see, I guess I started down here, I tried another texture pattern, and that is actually, I believe, the one that made it into the pattern, and some more garter to see like how these textures would play together. I then tried another texture. It's a really cool. I don't remember exactly how to do it or what it's called, but it's this right here. But it was kind of finicky, and I knew that if I didn't want to do it for a little bit of a swatch, I wouldn't want to do it for the shawl. I wouldn't want anyone else to, nobody else would want to do it either. And the point of this shawl was simple. So then I tried, it looks like another texture pattern. Am I showing you the wrong side? Another texture pattern, which again, just wasn't working. So I got all of those out of the way. So maybe I did this one first and then this one. I don't know, whatever it was, I came up with the concept, did my math, and like I said, cast on the plane. So getting through this first shawl came with its usual amount of ups and downs. I made a mistake really early on. This is supposed to be 2 rows of this purple here. And I guess because I was on vacation and I knew this wasn't the final one, I decided to leave it. I was like, forget it, I don't care. So, you know, more math to figure out how to adjust for having skipped a row and a decrease. Oh my goodness. It didn't matter though, because then I started working my texture pattern, which you can see still does look lovely in a variegated yarn, although it does get a little bit lost. It's much more defined in a solid. So, but pretty, like I said, either way. So throughout the texture section, working any kind of pattern and decreases takes a little bit of math, making sure you end with the right amount of stitches before going on to the next section, whatever. So then I got to this section and I wasn't sure, and I'm still a little not super confident about how people will feel about this. So in addition to starting at the big end and working to the small end, something sort of against the grain for shawls, I have made the color change on the wrong side. So this is actually the right side of the shawl. Normally, this kind of color change is not what we want to see on the right side. Usually you would see the stripes. I don't know, it still looks pretty that way, but I want it to be different. If you hate this, you can totally do that. On your shawl, you can adjust it. But I want it to be different, and I want it to blend, and I just think it has a really unique look. If you choose 2 colors that are similar, of course, you're not gonna get that abruptness. I even have to use this part to see which side is the wrong side and which side is the right side. Here, you just get more blend than you do on the other side. So here you can see barely the stripes, but here you just see like a blend of color, which I really love. And that's why I really wanted to choose similar colors. So it goes a little against the grain. You may love it and you may hate it, but don't worry, you can still knit this shawl. You can change it to make color changes on the right side if it really bothers you. I don't think I'm done exploring this yet because I think it's pretty cool. So yeah, that from there it kind of went down, and I had to figure out how I could continue my my little edging onto the tip, and I think I figured out a really good way. So when I finished my prototype, I did not have a ton of yarn left. This was not a full ball to begin with, so I knew I was fine on my contrast color, but this to me was a bit of a problem. Now I did use up some of it in a swatch, so you kind of have to add in that to the total yardage. But I knew that, like, I like to leave kind of a 10-gram buffer for any pattern, just so that if your skeins are a little different than mine, or you knit just slightly different, and even if you get gauge, your knitting is slightly different, everyone's is, that you have some wiggle room. So I did not like that. So I decided to adjust things. So from this mock-up to the final shawl, this section is about 20 rows shorter. And that just gives you enough yarn to complete the rest of the shawl. And it just shifted over all of the sections a little bit. So those were kind of the struggles I went through when making the shawl. Overall, it was a pretty, it wasn't a super bumpy design for me. Which is really nice. What I actually had more trouble with than designing it was making this one. I don't know what my problem was, but I probably ripped out this section. I ripped it out like 2 times. I had to really rip it out a lot because I chose colors that are really similar, and I tried to knit in the dark. So I would accidentally do like 2 rows in my more neutral color instead of alternating. And then I also realized that I missed a decrease somewhere, and I was like, Natalie, you cannot have this at the yarn shop with a missed decrease. So yeah, I don't know what my problem was, but it took me like a little while to get through this section when it really should have taken like a day or 2. And then this one just flew. So that was really fun. I did enjoy making the shawl from largest end to smallest end, and I think I will have to do more of those because it's just a nice way to like progress through a shawl and get to the finish line faster. This is my absolute favorite section because I get to show you how to wear this and why I chose this shape. So this is a triangular shawl. It's got a wide end and a skinny end. This tail of the skinny end is longer than the tail of this end. A lot of shawls that I've made in this manner, starting at the small end and increasing on one side, they aren't always long enough on the wide end to like throw over your shoulder. So I really made sure that with this one, I started out with enough stitches so you have plenty. So one way that you can wear it, this is hard, I gotta push my chair out of the way, hold on. Get out of the way. Okay, one way that you can wear it is you can just, put the point side down, gather up on either end, and just put it over like a bandana style. I like to do the short end underneath because it doesn't have as much, and so it needs to come around tighter, and then the long end on the top. I always kind of make sure I flip things around. This doesn't bother me very much, and you can just wear it with those tails hanging out. So that's a really good way to wear it. This is probably how I wear 90% of my shawls, and you can totally do that with Louisiana Street as long as you're comfortable keeping it like, it's not tight, but close to your neck. If you don't like having it close to your neck, oops, how this is really designed to go is with that wider end, you can flip it over your shoulder. Like I said, there's enough of it to stay there. And then you can take the, did I say longer? Wider, shorter end, longer tail, and then let that hang down in the front. If you kind of adjust it, so that's how it'll look in the front, you've kind of got pretty close to even distribution of those tails there. That should stay pretty good. I mean, if you're like moving around a lot, it's probably not gonna stay super well, but that'll work. You can also, if you don't enjoy that tail hanging in the back, you can bring it around and you can tuck it underneath, and that should stay really nicely. One more to show you, and then I have a special accessory. So of course, since this is a shawl, you can put it over your shoulders. It is still big enough to just come ever so slightly draped over your shoulders. So this is also a way I enjoy wearing it. It is asymmetrical. It's asymmetrical, so of course it's got more coverage on this side than it does on this side, but I still like it. All right, let me roll back in. I'll show you one more way. So I was in contact with a maker that makes these leather shawl cuffs. So she is Stephanie, and she owns the Rusted Stitch. And she so kindly sent me a shawl cuff and another one that I was able to give away on my podcast, which was really awesome. And so now somebody can have a shawl with a shawl cuff, or maybe even a Louisiana street. But what I love about the shawl cuff for this shawl in particular, if you do choose to wear it where you've got the short end, long tail like this, it works really, really well with the shawl cuff. So now you can just feed it underneath, pull it around, and snap it. So I probably should have left my chair over there. But now I've got one super cute accessory, but also a really practical way to keep the shawl on. You can still wear it like, I think this is probably a good way. I would probably take that shorter end and tuck it underneath. So I've still got that cute look in the front with this little end, and then nothing really bothering me in the back. I might even, I've seen this, I'm stealing this idea from TL Yarn Crafts. This is not my idea, but doing a little knot on the end, pretty cute, if I do say so myself. I really like it. But these again are from, Stephanie, who is the Rusted Stitch. And thank you, Stephanie, so much for sending me this. I really love it for the shawl. She's got so many fun, different designs. This is just a really simple one because simple shawl cuff. I really liked the brown with the warm tones that I was using, but she's got a huge array, so definitely go check hers out. You can wear, of course, this without a shawl cuff as well. Either way works super great. Lastly, let's talk about all of those little details that you need to know. You can also find these on the Ravelry pattern page if you're a Ravelry user. It lists out those details in the box and up above. But I'm just gonna go over them real quickly for you here, and I'm using my computer to make sure that I don't get them wrong. So, this shawl, again, is made out of fingering weight or sock weight yarn. You can use anything that you like, although I did use a, I believe I used a 75-20, yeah, a 75-25 blend. The thing about that blend is it usually gives you a bit more yardage. So my skeins from Long Dog Yarn were 463 yards. That does come in handy because for the main color, you're probably gonna need almost all of that 100-gram skein. My testers were definitely coming in close for that. So make sure if you make a swatch, you save it. And if your gauge is a little too big or a little too small and you have to choose between, I would go for a little too small, just in case you don't want to run out of yarn, of course. For the contrasting color, you will not need to use a full skein. My testers are ranging from 50 to 60 grams, 50 to 65 grams. So if you have a partial skein somewhere that's maybe 70 grams, that would be perfect to use. So the gauge is actually, before I say the needle, before blocking, I was getting 20 stitches over 4 inches in garter stitch, but after blocking, it's going to stretch a lot and you will need to get 16 stitches or around that. So definitely try to get that 20 stitches before blocking gauge. I used a needle size 6, but most of my testers did have to go up a needle size to get that gauge. So on the pattern, it will likely say size 7, US size 7 needles, which I believe is a 4.5 millimeters. So again, do your gauge swatch and edge on the side of smaller because you don't want to run out of yarn. There really aren't any special stitches in this shawl. It's garter stitch, it's really easy texture, it's a simple applied border and some decreases. It's really easy. There is a video, however, for alternating your yarns. Woo! So the whole thing is knit with an applied I-cord edge. It's a really, really tiny 2-stitch I-cord, but you are gonna have to alternate yarns at your I-cord edge. So I have a really short video showing you how to carry your yarns when you're alternating them at the I-cord edge so that you get, you know, a pretty alternating edge and not like a tangled mess of yarn. It took me a little while to figure out, so I recorded a video and it is up on YouTube. It's public. You can go check it out now if that's something you're stressed about before you get the pattern, but it is really easy to do and available to you for this pattern and for any others that you might have. So that's it as far as the details. Oh wait, no, the size. The size. So of course with any kind of shawl, it varies depending on your knitting, but on average, after blocking, the shawl is going to be about 65 inches wide. That's from tip to tip, and about 25 to 30 inches deep. So it is a decent sized shawl. It definitely is one of those deep triangular shawls, but usually you're not wearing it with an asymmetrical shawl straight down to the belly button. It kind of curves over to the side. So I think it fits very nicely. So that's it for details, and we're almost done. Thank you so much for watching my love letter to the Louisiana Street shawl. Again, if you're interested in that pattern, you can find the links below or contact me via email. So I am signing off my love letter to Louisiana Street. Love in stitches, Knitty Natty.